The question is that this bill be now read a second time. The member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased to follow the member for Hughes and find myself agreeing with everything I just heard her say. I didn't hear how you started, member for Hughes, but I suspect I would have agreed with the start of it as well. Most of us in this chamber understand that society has changed, almost unrecognisably in some ways, over the last 30, 40, 50 years, in the way women now expect to be able to live their lives and the things that we expect to be able to achieve. And I actually can't believe it, but I'm turning 50 this year. And when I think of my mother's experience when she had me, as someone who was a teacher, and the experience of women now, professional women, when they have children, it is remarkable and so positive the changes that have happened over that 50-year period. My mother found it very hard to go back to teaching after having had me because she didn't get the support at the school for the flexibility that she needed to be able to have a baby, a young child, and be able to work full-time. And we would find that extraordinary these days, for that to be acceptable, particularly in a public school system. This bill takes us another step towards achieving the sort of society that we want to be a part of. And that is, for many of us in this place, and for almost everyone I know in my community, a society where men and women are able to equally share the joys and the burdens of childcare, particularly in the early years after they've had children. For too long now, the structure of workplaces, the culture in Australia and the expectations have made it incredibly difficult for men who want to be at home and be part of the early weeks, months and years of their children's lives to do that. As women, we often rightly talk about how important it is to have paid parental leave provisions for women and to support women to get back into the workforce, and all of the benefits individually for women, for businesses and for the economy, and quite frankly for children, of being able to see women go back into the workplace after having children. Possibly we should also talk more about how important it is to encourage and facilitate men to take on more of that child-caring role earlier in their children's lives, and to help men who want to do it. And that's why, in particular, the use it or lose it provision in this legislation of 2 weeks paid parental leave is an important step towards being able to do that. We know, and others in this place have said it, and there's nothing new or remarkable in what I'm saying, but we know that the research shows that if men spend more time with their children in the time immediately after birth, then they are also more likely to be more involved in their children's lives as they grow up. And we know the benefit to children for having that relationship with their fathers. And we, of course, know the benefit to women, it's generally women, to having a male partner who is more involved in their children's lives and also takes on more of the unpaid work that is associated with having a family. And we know from all the census data that women still do the disproportionate amount of unpaid work around the home, often no matter how progressive that household is and how much the man and the woman in that household both want to be equal and share the burden. Again, culture, workplaces and a lack of opportunity for men to be more involved play into that unequal burden. So I'm really pleased with this legislation and everything that speakers before me have said that it will achieve for families, for productivity and for children. It is an important first step in what the Albanese government wants to achieve, and that push towards 26 weeks paid parental leave, and looking forward to the recommendations of the Women's Economic Task Force about what some of the provisions should be in that legislation. It will surprise no one to hear, after what I've just said, that I think we can also do better in terms of the use it or lose it provisions. And of course there's very difficult decisions to be made about costs of reforms, progressive reforms, in the economic sense and the benefits of them. And we can't always bring in, and particularly bring in quickly, perhaps some of the extent of the reforms that some of us would like to see. But there are other countries in the world that have a standard in paid parental leave that we should be looking to, I believe, in the future and aspiring to. We could look to Sweden, which, as I understand it, has 480 days of paid leave provided to parents, 90 of which are reserved for fathers on that use it or lose it basis. Iceland has 12 months leave, which at 80% of total salary, which can be shared between parents. That's a pretty expensive scheme, it must be said. But there are a number of countries around the world that are and have looking at that extended use it or lose it provisions, and which can point to a change in the culture in their countries as a result of introducing them, can point to changes in data which says that men very rarely took paid parental leave or were involved in the early years of their children's lives before the introduction of use it or lose it provisions in paid parental leave. And now it's becoming a societal norm. And my contribution to this legislation is to say it is absolutely terrific, and I'm very proud to be a government that's introducing it, but to also say that norm where both men and women can be part of the early years of their children's lives and can make a decision between them about how that is balanced, that's the norm that we should be aspiring to in this country, and will go a long way towards